Hello everyone, welcome back to my second channel. Welcome back to Jack in the Books. Recently I have been going through it. It has been an emotional roller coaster. It has been a lot for my little heart to take. But the thing that I've really relied upon has been my friends and friendship. And I really do believe that friends can be the great loves of your life. And actually, my friend Jordan sent me something this morning. It's like this little thing that says, "The loss of romantic love has just made me see all the ways my friends love me and give me what I need." And I just thought it was so sweet. And it's so true. I've been thinking a lot about friendship. I've been thinking a lot about how much I adore my friends and the friendships I have in my life and how lucky I feel to have those people. And I actually went to a panel at the PEN America World Voices Festival, where they basically brought all of these amazing authors from all around the world to New York. And I went to a talk on friendship in literature. The panel featured 4 incredible female authors, and as soon as the talk ended, I bought their books, which they were addressing, because these all deal with friendship. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice there are 3 books here. That is because the other book I already have, but it's in the UK, and that is Life Ceremony by Sayaka Murata. But I'm going to be going through these books. But I also, as the talk was going on, I started making little notes in my phone of the insights that these authors were giving on stage, because it was so meaningful to me, and I just wanted to share that wisdom because it gave me a lot to think about, and I thought they put a few things in really beautiful words that I'm not capable of giving you myself, and I basically just thought that since this event has been and gone and it's happened and I was lucky enough to be there, I wanted to share that with you because maybe these insights will be useful or helpful or interesting to you, I don't know. So I got 3 books. Actually, I had to dash off after the talk, so I missed all the signed copies, but I went back the next day and bought non-signed copies, but that's okay. So I have The Book of Goose by Yeon Lee. I got Allswell by Mona Awad. Mona Awad was actually the moderator of the panel. And then Kamala Shamsi's Best of Friends. And like I said, the other incredible author on the panel was Sayaka Murata, whose books I love, so much so that I had pre-ordered her new book, Life Ceremony, and it's waiting for me when I get back to London at some point, whenever I go back. So I wanted to talk about these books and also the authors. So maybe I'll go through each book and kind of share the notes that I wrote that each author kind of shared, and then I'll also show you the book. So firstly we have Kamala Shamsi, who is just the most incredible speaker. I was absolutely mesmerized. I was in the palm of her hand when she was speaking. It was so fascinating. She spoke a bit about the mingled histories that you have with your childhood friends, specifically the people that you grew up with, and how those people contain a version of you that maybe no longer actually exists. So because you have grown up, you've developed, you've changed, you've adapted, with new information comes new ideas, you have become a new version of yourself. The people who knew you as a child hold on to that version of you, of who you were when you were in your parents' home, who you were when you were at school, who you were in that infant version of yourself, that not quite fully formed version of yourself, almost the most honest version of yourself, because it's before you've had time to adapt and change. Often at that point you're following just very natural instincts that you have and you're just working things out. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. She also spoke about Zadie Smith's Swing Time. And in that book, Zadie Smith says, you can't make new old friends. And that really gave me a lot to think about, You can make really valuable new friendships, but those long-term friendships that endure and have seen you, like I said, adapt and change and develop are so valuable, and they're things you can't really replicate, You have to put in energy, you have to put in time to maintain friendships like that. And so those friendships are really, really special. It really made me think of the people I grew up with and how much I value them, I guess. She was also speaking about how when those friendships end, it is heartbreaking. You can feel like you have a broken heart from a platonic friendship. Because when you lose contact or fall out with a friend who has known you a really long time, that version of you that they hold dies along with the friendship. They are the one who reminds you of things that maybe you don't even remember. They'll tell you about memories you kind of forgot you even had, things that you did, things you said that may have slipped your mind. That version of you is lost when the friendship is lost, and that's why often it feels so confusing and hurtful and like loss. It really does feel like you are kind of mourning or grieving that friendship. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. She also said, this is a direct quote, and I thought it was beautiful. Sometimes being honest with the people you love is the cruelest thing you could do. Why? Like, that just got me, because it's so true, you know. Sometimes there are things that the people around you don't need to hear. Sometimes there are things that the people around you have to be protected from. And I thought that was interesting because it's something we don't always talk about so much. So that made me want to read this book so much. I absolutely adored her previous novel, Home Fire. It made me sob. It was one of the best things I read during my degree. And this is the story of a lifelong friendship and the forces that bring it to the breaking point. Zara and Miriam have been best friends since childhood in Karachi, even though, or maybe because, they are unlike in nearly every way. Yet they never speak of the differences in their backgrounds or their values, not even after the fateful night when a moment of adolescent impulse upends their plans for the future. 3 decades later, Zara and Miriam have grown into powerful women who have each cut a distinctive path through London. But when two troubling figures from their past resurface, they must finally confront their bedrock differences and find out whether their friendship can survive. Thought-provoking, compassionate, and full of unexpected turns, Best of Friends offers a riveting take on an age-old question: does principle or loyalty make for the better friend? And I think that's such a fascinating idea because often, you know, your childhood friends are contextual. It's a postcode lottery where you end up being born and that kind of thing, like where you end up growing up. And it's also a bit of a lottery of who also ends up being there with you, you know? I went to a school where there were like 28 of us in my primary school class. That's a small pool of people to choose from at first. And some of your really formative early memories exist so thoroughly with those people. I thought it was so fascinating to think about that, you know, had anything been different in another lifetime, you would have a completely different circle in those really early years, because you are limited by who is immediately around you. You know, as a child, it's not like you can find people who are more compatible with you online or anything like that. You're with the people that you grow up with. So I think that's a really interesting idea, and then going on to think about how those friendships endure when you do have access to a wider world. So that is Best of Friends by Kamala Shamsi. I can't wait to read that. It's described on the cover by Madeline Miller, who's a great author, as a profound novel about friendship. I loved it to pieces. And I hope I do too. Okay, next we have All's Well by Mona Awa. This is a book about two girls. One is chronically ill and the other one isn't. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic. She was speaking about how your friends' capacities are not limitless. You know, sometimes it feels like we want to rely on friends to be able to give the perfect advice and to always be there for us in our time of need. But what she was talking about is like your friends are also living their own very unique lives. They're having their own day, they're having their own hour, their own minute, where like hundreds of things are going through their head at all times. And I guess it was about having empathy towards our friends when they aren't there for us in the way that we need them to be, or when they don't look out for us in the way that we want them to in an ideal world. Like they have, she called it the ceiling of empathy, where we have to kind of manage our expectations and be a bit more compassionate and understanding of our friends' limitations while still loving them, if that makes sense. And someone in the crowd actually asked how she differentiated between writing about love, romantic love, and writing about friendships. And what she said was, writing about friendship is writing about love. She said building a friendship is like building a world with that person or with those people, and writing is also building a world. And I really love that idea. I think that it's so true that platonic love can be just as intense and meaningful as romantic love. I think it's unhelpful to think of it in any other way. And the truth is that relationships, romantic relationships, often end with a sense of finality. Like you can cut someone out of your life and you can sever those ties a lot more easily than I think you can with a friend, because often with a friend there's a lot more crossover. Friendships, kind of like sibling relationships, are dynamics where you can really hurt each other and still come back to each other, and it is much easier to repair, I think, than a romantic relationship. And that's love. That is because you love them, you know? Yes, in a different way, but it's still love. And I thought that was really important. So this is All's Well. Firstly, there's a Shakespeare reference in the title. Obviously, I had to buy the book. Miranda Fitch's life is a waking nightmare. The accident that ended her acting career left her with excruciating chronic back pain, a failed marriage, and a deepening dependence on painkillers. Determined to put on a production of Shakespeare's All's Well that ends well, she faces a mutinous cast hell-bent on staging Macbeth instead. That's when she meets three strange benefactors who have an eerie knowledge of Miranda's past and a tantalizing promise for her future, one where the show goes on, and the invisible, doubted pain that's kept her from the spotlight is made known. With prose Margaret Atwood has described as no punches pulled, no hilarities dodged, genius, Mona Awad has concocted her most potent, subversive novel yet. All's Well is a fabulous novel about a woman at her breaking point and a formidable, piercingly funny indictment of our collective refusal to witness and believe female pain. I think that's really fascinating. I loved her other book, Bunny. It was weird and wonderful and just spiraled totally out of control for you as a reader, but you knew that Mona Awad had everything in her hands. Like, she knew exactly what was going on. She had such tight control over a book that felt chaotic for the reader, and that's a really hard thing to do and really, really genius. So, in fact, she's described on the cover as a stone cold genius by the Washington Post, so that is All's Well. And she was a great moderator of this panel. Sayaka Murata was talking about how her editor was actually the one who suggested that she writes a character with friends, because she often had written books about very lonely, isolated characters up until Life Ceremony, which is her new short story collection. I think they said that the story Hatchlings is the most applicable to thinking about friendship. So if you are going to read that book and this is what you're looking for, Hatchlings is the short story for you. Obviously the beauty of a short story collection is you don't have to read them in order. She spoke about her experience of feeling very malleable, kind of like a social chameleon where she changes based on who she's with. She actually described herself, which I thought was so interesting, as an empty cup that other people fill, that she then spills out from. I thought it was really interesting to see yourself in that way. I've never really thought of myself like that, or I've never heard anyone describe themselves like that, where she kind of was talking about herself as like an empty vessel waiting for other people to share with her so that then she could share with them too on a kind of level playing field and in a way that she felt matched what they were looking for. I thought that was really interesting. She also spoke about how conversations can be a physical exchange as well as an intellectual one, and how she's always very aware of people's physicality, even down to like when they spit by accident, they get something stuck in their teeth, like that whole thing, the way they use their hands to speak. She said she was very switched on to that kind of thing, which I thought was interesting, obviously to then go into her work, knowing that she's very switched on to that kind of thing and attuned to that kind of thing, because I'll definitely be looking out for that more in her writing now. So I'm really looking forward to reading Life Ceremony too. And then this absolutely gorgeous book, The Book of Goose. This is Yeon Lee. Oh yeah, she was also talking about how friends save each other's memories. That was kind of a conversation that her and Kamala Shamsi were having. And actually she spoke about the romance of friendship. She was actually trying really not to differentiate between romantic and platonic love. She was like, there is this gorgeous romance to a friendship, you know? You do kind of like go on dates as friends. It's just that the goal is different. It's not like a sexual goal. It's not a goal to build a life together in a kind of nuclear family kind of way. Whereas the other kind of relationship has goals to it. Maybe you think, oh, one day we'll get engaged, maybe one day we'll get married, maybe one day we'll have children together, maybe one day we'll buy a house together. Like, you don't necessarily have that with your friends. I know that some people buy houses with friends, but, you know, on a generalized scale, those things are different. And so she said there's kind of almost less pressure on a friendship because you don't have those targets in a way that you have to one day hit, and that when you first meet a friend you're like, could I marry you? Like, you don't have to do that. And again, speaking very normatively here, like, those are often goals that people have in relationships. And so I thought that was interesting, like the way that we put less pressure on a friendship in that capacity. And she was also discussing how friends save each other's memories, how a friend holds a version of you, and that's really precious and special and nice. So let's talk about The Book of Goose. But first I have to stand up for a sec because I'm getting like pins and needles. Oh my god. Oh, I can't walk. Okay, this is an issue. Okay, it's the last book, Jack. Just put up with it. Fabienne is dead. Her childhood best friend Agnes receives the news in America, far from the French countryside where the two girls were raised, the place that Fabienne helped Agnes escape 10 years ago. Now Agnes is free to tell her story. As children in a war-ravaged backwater town, they built a private world, invisible to everyone but themselves, until Fabienne hatched the plan that would change everything, launching Agnes on an epic trajectory through fame, fortune, and terrible loss. a magnificent, beguiling tale winding from the post-war rural provinces to Paris, from an English boarding school to the quiet Pennsylvania home where a woman can live without her past. The Book of Goose is a story of disturbing intimacy and obsession, of exploitation and strength of will by the celebrated author Yeon Lee. So, how brilliant do all of these books sound? They are so high up on my TBR right now, I cannot wait to read these. And of course I'll share more once I have read them, but I just thought I'd do a bit of a different kind of video today and talk a little bit about friendship in literature. And also share some kind of recommendations based on this panel that I went to. And I hope this also makes you think about your friends and appreciate your friends. Thank you also for feeling like friends all the time. I love this community so much, so thank you for always being there. Have a wonderful day, all the best, and I'll catch you very soon. Bye-bye!